Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audacious Confidence Show. I'm your host, Alicia Couri, and yes, I am an audacious confidence growth expert, and I am here today to influence, inspire, educate, and entertain you. Influence, educate, inspire, and entertain you um, with so you can step into your own audacious confidence. And today is a very special show in honor of Blackout Tuesday. We are going to talk about what has been happening in the past week with my very special guest. And one of the things that I hear all the time is the disproportionate amount of how disproportionate it is for Blacks to be killed by police than any other race. And I looked up some of the statistics, and the Washington Post did a study from 2015, January 2015 until now, and this is per million. So even though the numbers seem like Blacks are less, when you look at it per capita, like per million of the same race, it works out that 30 Blacks per million are killed when 22 Hispanics per million are killed, and 12 per million whites are killed, and four other are just, a mix of other minorities. So when you look at Black, Brown, so Blacks and Hispanics, it is 52 per million that are killed by, killed by police versus 12 when you look at whites. And that is disproportionate. And so we want to have a real and true discussion, because, there's people are hashtagging Black Lives Matter, and saying that it's not that other lives don't matter. It's that there is this killing, or this idea that it's okay if it's happening and it continues to happen, because what's really the loss. So it's more that let's try to bring awareness to the fact that there is this gap that is happening, and let's bring awareness to that gap and show that everybody's life, yes, matters, but also why is this so disproportionate? Something is going on, and we're not addressing it. So my guest tonight, he was here before, and I reached out and I said, hey, you want to come talk about it? And he's like, yes, I do. So let me introduce my guest to you. So it's Dr. Kieran Brown, and just take a look. So welcome, Dr. Kieran Brown. Thank you so much.
Hey,
So
all
we're going to
right.
talk about
Hey.
being a Black man in America, because that's you. So
Yeah.
if you didn't
I
know,
am Black. This is America. Yeah.
if you didn't
I
know,
probably should be, and I probably shouldn't be wearing all this red either. I'm easier to spot, I suppose. But
listen, you did it in honor of me. So,
yes, I did. So,
so I want to just first of all ask you about that statistic, if that's something that resonates with you, or was it something shocking to you?
it wasn't shocking. It's appalling, but it wasn't shocking at all. Um, I say that it does resonate, and there are a variety of reasons why I think that tends to be the case. Black people in general, black males in particular. So I think. I mean, would you like to hear the thoughts?
Yeah, it's why
Why?
you're
Since
here.
since we're here, okay. Yeah, I think a lot has to do with perception. And the perception is not only perceptions that people have currently, it has historical antecedents that Black men tend to be, according to the perception, aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
and it almost doesn't matter what what the person's about. It tends to be more aggressive because the perception is skewed. For example, I'm 6'1", about 240. I'm not the world's smallest guy. I'll be somewhere and somebody else like, hey, do you play football? Nope. Are you in the military? No, I'm not. Are you a police officer? No, I'm not. Nobody ever thinks doctor. Nobody ever thinks, anything that's intellectual. It's all physical. But I have been in settings like medical settings where I'm on a multidisciplinary team. There are other doctors, other professionals in a meeting. They'll give their opinions about what should happen with a particular patient or whatever, and then I'll disagree. But I'll disagree basically in the same tone that I'm speaking right now. And I'll be like, well, no, I think he probably needs this level of treatment. This or this.
I think someone disagrees with you.
I'm not hearing things, right?
Sorry,
No.
I'm still not sure about that.
I don't know how the ghosts are back. I don't know.
One can't know everything.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I think it's like anger management. You're trying to you're talking in a very calm voice, and they're like,
yes,
calm down, sir. Calm down.
The heavens royal. Yeah. It's funny you should say that because I was in a staff meeting and I disagreed with what some of the other doctors wanted to do. And I said, well, I really think that there should be another course of action. Then I get someone, Dr. Brown, calm down. I'm like, with what? I don't get it. Well, you don't have to be so excited about it. And like, I'm not being excited. I'm sort of stating my opinion as is everyone else. So there was a young lady, she was a tech on the unit. And she and I were talking later, and she said, and she's from Africa. She had a very poetic way of speaking. She said, well, Dr. Brown, when you speak, people tremble.
The resonance of your voice. It's like, it's this deep resonance of your voice. So I guess,
Yeah, I guess, but consequently, I'll be looked at as being more aggressive when I'm simply trying to state my opinion or my position or this or that. And there have been times when I'm just talking with someone, or if there's if oh, help, someone just robbed my store. If I'm standing there, I get nervous. I didn't do anything, but when the cops come, I'm going to be looked at.
right.
And I've had it happen since I was 13 years old. I've had guns pointed at me by cops since I was a kid, doing nothing. And it's just, you're sort of guilty by, I guess, whatever the profile is or whatever the perception is. But as I said, so you don't necessarily have to be doing.
You were a tall kid.
I was about 13. I was about, I don't know, at that time, probably about 5'10", 5'11", and I'm 6'1" now. And it's just a lot of times when there's aggression somewhere, people will attribute it to me, whether I do anything or not.
Wow.
And God forbid I'm offended by it, and now I really am angry.
But so you can't do anything because now you're the angry Black man.
Right. And then when I say something, then it confirms a bias that was rooted in something that was erroneous to begin with. So sometimes it's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah. I see Javier saying, hey, Siri. Siri wasn't invited to this party. I don't know why.
Always intruding. Yeah. So.
So like I told you, well, let me ask this first question because I talked about the statistic, but I want to ask, before I get to the other questions I have, how has the events in the last week affected you, or how have you felt about it?
I didn't realize how deeply it impacted me until I was on my way to the office this morning to see someone. And I just felt this overwhelming sadness and a sense of futility. I mean, I am, for what I do for a living, I'm in the business of knowing that people can change, and that, I do my best to be an agent for change. but sometimes it feels like the opposition is just too big. It's too
Wow.
global. I feel like I've been fighting my whole life,
Mhm.
for respect, for dignity, to be thought of as equivalent to other people that I'm around, those types of things. Or
Like no
if I
matter
say,
how many degrees you get, you're still looked at as this
oh,
angry black man.
absolutely, absolutely. And then sometimes it's like there have been situations where I have to prove much more beyond a reasonable doubt that I know what I'm talking about. And it's
Right.
exhausting. It's
Yeah.
exhausting. But despite, I know societally why a lot of these things are going on and how long they've been going on and what perpetuates them, things like that, and why we see much more of an increase in both the police killings of Black men, but also of a lot of Caucasian people calling the cops on Black people and things like that. I can see a lot of the reasons that is the case. And I talked to my wife about it, talked to my friends about it, and I kind of process it and everything. But today it just really hit me. It's overwhelming to watch that man die
Right
live
in front of you.
right in front of you, and no one can help him. And no one, because if anybody tried to intervene, then the police are going to keep out the help that would have saved this man's life. I mean,
Mhm.
to protect and serve each other, it seems like, because whatever they did for themselves. They did nothing to help this person. And I just felt it just such a sense of futility
Yeah.
today. And it just feels overwhelming at times.
That was really just to see him take his last breath,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah. The world
When
has
they
seen
had
this
the
man die.
power, they
Hmm.
had the power to stop that. Just,
Hmm.
you know, um,
Hmm.
yeah, Stacy says Siri gets so jealous. She's like, I
I
got her.
appreciate that. Thank you. All
And
right. Well,
Jillian on YouTube says, "Oh dear, that is so sad." Yeah, it's really sad that when you're in Stacey says Black Lives Matter, but honestly, all lives matter. Yeah, and there's some backlash about saying all lives matter. I even got backlash for saying that the other day from my own children.
mhm.
Sebastian says, "What is happening right now is not new, but it's 2020, and enough is enough." Colored lives matter, because a lot of it is happening globally. The protests. Sebastian
Mhm.
says people don't talk about it enough, but at the back of their mind, being of color always keeps me on the edge in situations where I know I'm surrounded by prejudiced mindsets.
Yeah.
And talking about prejudiced mindset, you kind of alluded to something earlier, and I wanna expound on that a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, when you said you were fighting this your whole life, and um, I wanted to ask if you feel like, because you talked about slave. Did you mention slavery? Maybe in my head, I thought I heard you talk about for hundreds of years this oppression. That was kind of the idea you were talking about a
Mhm.
minute ago. And do you think there's a collective consciousness of slavery within the Black community still that keeps us feeling as if we are not as good as? And I'm not talking about other races looking at us that way.
Mhm.
I'm talking about within ourselves. If there's this kind of in our DNA, this collective consciousness of not being enough or good enough because we are descendants of slaves.
I definitely think there is some of that. I see it a lot with Black women feeling not good enough for various reasons. In terms of some historical treatment, it doesn't go all the way back to slavery, but the one example that I have about how ingrained it could be is maybe 12, 15 years ago. I was in Macy's, and the Macy's that we have in North Miami. Uh, you can move from one part of the store where they had it configured at one time, and I was with a friend of mine, and you can move from one part of the store to get to the other part. You have to like move this way, and that's the entrance to the mall, and then you move the other way. So I
Hmm.
had some items that I was going to buy, but she was like, "Hey, let's go on to the other side and see if they have some more things." So she's walking ahead of me, and I stop, and she's like, "Well, come on," and I'm like, "I can't." go over there. I got to
You
pay
can't
for this
cross
stuff here.
through.
Yeah, I can't cross through. I have to pay for this stuff here. She said, no, you don't. We're still in the store and we're just going over here. I'm like, no, I can't. It was disturbing to me because it was almost like there was this invisible barrier or tether that said, because she was like, everybody's doing this, but I felt like I couldn't because I was going to be looked at like I was going to rob the place or I'm stealing
You're going to
something.
run out with the merchandise.
Yeah, I'm going to run out with the merchandise. Yeah, and I didn't realize how deeply ingrained that was until something inside me stopped me from doing something very common and very harmless. And I think with a lot of, in terms of slavery, we have been taught that we can only go so far and do so many things. Maybe 20 some years ago, I was doing a lot of psychological assessments of children. And I just finished testing this little girl. She was 9. She's African American. And I was walking her back to her grandmother in the waiting area. So I just had this habit, I guess. I would always ask the kids what they wanted to be when they grew up. And so I asked her, I said, what do you think you want to be when you grow up? She said, well, I don't know. I said, well, you can be anything you want to be, right? She's like, I can. And it was heartbreaking because no one at 9 years old had ever told this girl she could do something.
Wow.
And it's just like whatever the predictable kind of thing is what people do. And I think some of that does harken back to days when there were limitations. There were hindrances. There were albatrosses around our neck. There were all of these things. And I think sometimes we transmit these things whether we realize it or not.
Right. Subconscious, there's this subconscious messaging that, and you're not even aware that you're doing it or saying it.
And, there's, you mentioned, it's in our DNA. There's sort of psychologically, there's sort of an ability to transmit certain things. So a lot of times you'll see it where, like say an example of, I've done a lot of relationship work like in the last 30 years or so. So there are a lot of times I'll be talking to a young man, a young woman. Typically they're women because women like to come to therapy and actually get better. But a lot of times with women because they're forward thinking like that, guys. But so what'll happen is they'll tell me about what they perceive Black men to be like. Well, Black men are dogs, and Black men are this and Black men are that. So I listen to them. It's like, okay, when has that happened in your life? Tell me about a time. Well, it really hasn't happened to me, but I keep hearing. So it's sisters, their mothers, their aunts, so they inherit a pain and a set of expectations and limitations for their chosen. If they choose to be with Black men, they've inherited all of these perceptions that aren't really theirs. They have no actual basis for feeling the way that they do, other than
of Black men.
I'm sorry.
Right. They have no basis, no personal basis for the belief that they have about Black men.
Exactly. And, and with so many things, in our culture and other cultures as well, is there'll be certain sort of expectations, certain commonalities that happen in cultures. I've talked to different people, to different groups at times, talking about relationships. So in our culture, like say in one talk I gave, this woman said, well, as far as brothers cheating, that's normal. Black men gonna cheat. And I corrected her. I said it's not normal, it's common. It's a difference.
Yeah.
And it's like, slavery was common, but slavery has never been normal. No, right. It's not. And because something happens repetitively doesn't ever make it right. Right. So a lot of what you see going on now, it is, as Sebastian was right, it's not new, but we have more means to be able to record it and convey it now than we ever have. About 30 years ago, there was someone, I think it's on Oprah or something, was saying, well, it's 1992.
You do better.
Yeah. And it's 1992. There's so much more child abuse going on. There's so much more molestation going on. No, there's not. It just became more acceptable to be able to report it. It's always gone on. I can't imagine too many people I know that are surprised by all of this stuff that's going on now, because it's always gone on. My first encounter with having a gun pointed at the back of my head. I was 13 years old, and when it happened, there were four or five of us. I'm 13. My cousins and their friends are adults, and no dignity shown. We were lined up against a wall at a tire store for an impromptu lineup by somebody a white woman who said that her purse had been stolen by a black man. Well, we're in South Florida, so I'm sure there was only 3 or 4 of us, So they picked us, and honestly, there was like a dozen cops.
Wow.
And it's like it was an insane thing. And how is that supposed to, no pun intended, but color my impressions of police, that I don't necessarily think I have the same right in terms of calling the police as a lot of people.
Right.
Because I don't want to call the cops and then I'm the main suspect.
And then you end up being the suspect of it. And it has become the scapegoat for a lot of crimes. Even just recently, where a mother here in South Florida drowned her son, and she blamed it on 2 black men abducting her son, and had the cops, and that was the story. That was the minute I heard that story, I said, that's a bogus story. She did something to that boy. Because why is she talking about getting stopped on the side of the road? Why would someone stop you on the side of the road and take your son from the car? That didn't make any sense. No, but 2 black men ran me off the road and took my son and my cell phone. Right. Why 2 black men? Why?
Because when people have a certain perception of people, whatever new behavior you're talking about seems reasonable because, they are like that, or they're capable of doing that. A lot of times you'll see a situation and, you'll say, well, I think so-and-so did this. This person would never do something like that because they're just not that type of person. When you talk about a crime and then you say, well, 2 black guys did it, it's amazing to me how effortless it is for a lot of people. They might have done it.
Oh, yeah,
as opposed to anyone else.
Yeah.
As opposed to anyone else, So it's based on perception. I'm sorry?
Stereotyping.
Yeah.
It's profiling.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you were profiled at 13 years old for just being in a spot and saying, well, you're black, it must be you. Sebastian is saying we are now just conditioned to deal with it, but I have seen my black friends being nervous just for being black in Australia. And Santosh had said, High Tech Mother said, we raise family with colorless mindset, but see what the world is doing. I am so sad. I'm praying in tears. And Sebastian said again, you are not like other black, brown, Indian, Nigerian. You are better. Seriously.
Yeah.
The thing is, when you are judged just by the color of your skin, it makes you, because I want to talk about confidence here. It like growing up as a boy, this was my daughter wanted to know, was there ever a time in your life that just by the nature of the color of your skin that you didn't feel value or you didn't value yourself?
Yes. When I was in high school, when I was in 9th grade, it never occurred to me when I was in 9th grade that being black, if I liked someone, like I had a little crush or whatever on somebody, that color would be an issue. So, how it is in the high school, kids write little notes. Do you like me? Yes or no? Check here, check there, that kind of. So I remember doing that. And the little girl that I did that with, I'm like 14. What do I know, right? She looked horrified.
Wow.
And I'm just like, the reaction was so much bigger than what the situation was. I didn't understand it. And I really did. I felt horrible. It's like, I've always been a good student, athletic, all of these good things. So I didn't understand why the reaction to me was that strong. Because it had, I was kind of popular in school and everything. So I really didn't think it would be a big deal. But the reaction was, it was definite. And it was repetitive. So there was a period of about a year or so, I really did feel limited.
And how did you get over that?
I had to come to the realization of what it was and what it wasn't. What it wasn't was anything wrong with me. And what it was that just because I didn't find there to be an issue or a big enough discrepancy to not, uh, uh, I guess, interact with another group, just because I didn't see it as a problem didn't mean someone else wouldn't. So like I said, I just kind of thought
Yeah.
we were all cool. But when I found that out, it was a little frustrating. It was a little hurtful when I realized it's really not me. It's kind of the situation. I have no idea how this girl grew up. I had no idea what her family system was. I had no idea what her personal values were. But for whatever reason, she had a very strong reaction to me.
Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this show now, we are talking about confidence to be a Black man in America. This is the Audacious Confidence Show. I am your host, Alicia Couri, and my special guest tonight is Dr. Kieran Brown. And you are watching us possibly on Facebook, on YouTube, on Periscope, and we always broadcast on multiple pages on Facebook. So you could be watching us on Facebook on multiple pages or on YouTube or Periscope. So back to this conversation, because it is so interesting. And I just want to touch, because I don't want to get too deep into it, because I know you're a relationship expert and we can talk ad nauseum about relationships.
Ad nauseum. It's an interesting choice to word.
That rabbit hole. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But I do want to talk about, since you brought it up, the dynamics between interracial couples. Like if there's a couple who is, like the woman is white, the man is Black, and what that society looks at that from Black women looking at him and how white men look at her. And, what are some of those challenges for a Black man who is in love with a white woman?
Mm-hmm. It's been a long-standing thing. It's typically what I had heard growing up, because I had been in interracial relationships before. So I would be asked often by some of my friends, people I grew up with, just this interesting kind of ignorant kind of question. And so if this is the first person that I dated who was white, they come up to me and it's like, Kieran, why do you only like white girls? And I'm like, that's one of the dumbest. That's like if my girlfriend's named Mary, Karen, why do you only like girls named Mary? That would be ridiculous.
Right.
It was just a ridiculous kind of thing. So it was Black men historically, Black men who were dating white women or in relationships with white women. What I used to hear a lot growing up is the first thing a Black man does when he becomes, rich and famous or a celebrity is get himself a white woman. Mm-hmm. And correlation is not causation. Because you see certain examples of something doesn't mean this caused that. So a Black man being accomplished or achieving or something like that doesn't mean it's like, now that I've achieved this certain level, I'm going to get my white woman coupon and go and get me one. I mean, it's yes,
it's like a trophy.
Yeah, and it's kind of So it gives a whole new meaning to trophy wife kind of thing. But so there's that. But so there's not only from a lot of times from Black people that he's a sellout or he couldn't be with a Black woman because Black woman put up a real woman. Yeah, he can't handle a real woman because that white woman's going and it's going to go for whatever he's putting out and she's not going to challenge him and stuff. But he can't handle a Black woman. Ridiculous. But there's also, when it comes a lot of times from white men, when they look at the couple as a Black man and a white female, is that they sexualize it. Black people historically have been sexualized anyway, So a lot of times when you see a Black man and a white woman, it's he must be, well endowed. He must be hypersexual. He must be this. He must be that. When you see the configuration where it's a Black woman and a white male, she's his chocolate fantasy. And it's
So
It's
true.
it's reductionist. It's like I am no more than whatever attributes you think I have. And and I've heard people say, well, if they think you're so sexual, they think you're this, that's that's a good thing. It's not a compliment. There are no good stereotypes because a stereotype is a reduction of a human being down to a couple, if you're lucky, attributes. So I'm much more than a psychologist. I'm much more than a man. I'm much more than a husband. Whatever space I'm occupying at the time,
Yeah.
I and most people are more than just that. But people, like I say, they will reduce this couple to whatever they think got them together in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing how and what you said earlier about realizing that it wasn't you specifically, and that's the perception too. They're not taking the time to get to understand, oh, these two people found commonality. They love each other for so many other reasons. And it wasn't just that chocolate fantasy or that
Yeah.
mandingo kind of,
Yeah. Thank you. Mandingo. Here we go. And but the thing with that though, okay, if a black man and a white woman together because he's Mandingo, and a white man and a black woman together because she's a chocolate fantasy, what's the narrative for two white people getting together?
I don't know.
Just normal? I mean, what?
But
Tuesday? Is that what it is?
It's Tuesday, and it's like it's like this jungle fever. It's like this taboo thing. It's like this, it's crazy. But
it is.
Like I said, we can go down this path.
You asked me.
Interracial relationships, but I have a child that she loves to see interracial relationships. She just loves to see when there's a couple who are in love and they're of different races. She gets so happy inside. She's like, because it's like breaking down barriers, to her, like breaking down these barriers. But I want to talk about how do you talk to your children? Like, you have a daughter. How do you talk to your daughter about, how society is as a Black woman, or how your experience as a Black man has been?
Yeah, it's a little dicey. Our daughter is super smart and super opinionated and has a lot of information to work with. So she's pulling from all these different sources of information and forming her own opinions about things. But the opinions aren't necessarily tempered with experience. Of course, she's 11, But when I tell her about some of my experience, and and I am careful about what I talk to her about, because not that I'm keeping any secrets or anything like that, but you can't know everything all at once, or else it's overwhelming. So even when I tell her about the experience of having all these guns on us and stuff like that as a kid, and several other times during my adolescence even, I let her know that, one, not everyone is like that. For whatever the reasons were, this is what happened. But to help her to understand that good, bad, or indifferent, no group of people is homogeneous in that way, that everybody acts the same way.
Right.
So most of her friends are Caucasian or Hispanic. So I let her know that some of the things that are going to be the most durable elements of your friendships are going to be the characteristics that actually mean something. Do your friends treat you well? Do you treat them well? Do they treat you respectfully? If they have a question, whether it's about race or this or that, good, because now they want to know. But as long as they ask you respectfully. When I was 14 and the relationship I had was with a girl who was white, it was very interesting the differences that I had with my parents' reaction to it. My father was born in Tuskegee, Alabama in 1910.
Whoa.
Oh yeah, all of that. Because when he found out about it, he was just like looking at me like I just grew another head, like, why why would you do? And he had all this, and I just thought, man, that's ridiculous. My mother, had a very different reaction. She asked me very simply, she said, do you like her? I'm like, yeah. She like you? Yes. Does she treat you well? And I'm, yes, she does. Do you treat her respectfully? Do you treat her well? I'm like, yeah, she said, well, that's all that matters. You know? So in when we watch some of these things that are going on now, and our daughter has a very strong reaction to it, I listen to her. I let her say whatever she thinks, whatever she feels. And I just let her get it out because she is feeling it deeply and passionately.
Would you let her
The affront
protest?
of it. Yeah,
Would
I
you?
would. I would go with her,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's some daddy daughter time because my child ain't going out there by herself. But yeah, I would let her express herself. I would let her stand up for whatever her values are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that even when she and I are interacting and she thinks she's going to get in trouble for something or whatever, it's like, talk to me. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said before, I'm not the world's smallest guy, right? So the thing that I love about her is like, I remember the first time she's her little self and she's has her hands behind her back and she's like, well, I respectfully disagree with what you said because I think it's this and I think it's that. Really, the disagreement I didn't care about. The fact that she stood on her 2 feet, looked me right in my eye, and said what was on her mind. That's all that really mattered to me. And I want her to be able to do that in any class, with any
That's
friends.
powerful.
Yeah, I just want her to be able to express herself. And I've told her very explicitly, if you ever find yourself in a situation where somebody's keeping you from being able to say what you think and feel, get out of that situation, whatever it is. Because what it does, it's not about agreement. It's about the ability and the space to express yourself and never let anybody demean or diminish that.
Yes. And that's there are like three things running through my head that are trying to come out of my mouth at the same time right now.
Yeah.
So let me take them one at a time. Okay, let's say Talk to Me movement says, for all this to happen during COVID, already the Black community is facing so much disadvantage, and now this. That's true because, again, disproportionately, the Black community has been suffering more from this coronavirus than other communities. So it is hitting hard on a lot of different levels. So first thing I want to ask is, because you started talking about that, for her to be in a situation, if she feels like she cannot be heard, to get out of that situation, or she can't express herself to get out of that situation. But do you feel like we as Black people and there's something else that I've been wanting to talk about too, but do you feel as Black people, we have to act differently and not allow our voices to be heard?
I think we have to modulate quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think modulate quite a bit because, like I said, if what I find interesting is a lot socially about what's going on. I think a lot of people are having a problem because they're being treated like minorities. Like with the whole COVID thing, right? It's like no group or no individual, nobody likes to lose power, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a Time magazine article in 2015 that talked about the browning of America, and it was saying by X number of years, Caucasian people will be less, they won't be the cultural majority anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think with a lot of the current political climate of, Make America Great Again, it's about making America white again, back the way it used to be. And things are changing and people are losing the power that they had. And I think on some psychological level, they don't want to be treated like minorities because Lord knows they know how minorities are treated. Mm-hmm. So I think when we talk about certain things or when we express ourselves, if we do, depending on who we are and how we express ourselves or whatever, it may be perceived very, very differently than what's meant. Like I said, I can't strongly disagree with someone in a particular thing. Yeah, like I'm gonna start flipping over tables. Like I'm going to jail because I just want to, express myself or whatever. There's social psychological studies that have been done that, like say in business settings, that if you take a script and a Caucasian man expresses himself, just basically reading the script, so that he may be perceived as intelligent, a great leader, all these different things. A Black man says the exact same thing to a group. he's perceived, wow, he's pretty smart. He's a standout. He's like basically a credit to his race kind of thing.
Right.
White female says something, the same script and stuff. If she disagrees with someone, then she's being a B.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Right.
being, one's being assertive. White man's being assertive. Black man's being a bit aggressive. She's just being a B. And when black female said, they just looked at as not necessarily knowing what they're talking about. So
Yeah.
so how we express ourselves, the tenacity, the words, sometimes, given the circumstances, we do have to modulate it if we still want the message to get across. One
We
of the
want
most,
to be respected. Yeah. Sebastian, you're saying exactly like there's so much going on in my mind right now. Just like you, there's so many questions I want to ask still, and I'm looking at the time. I'm like, but because I heard on one of the news reports that we have to, Stacy says we do have to act differently.
Yeah.
We have to like almost be at a higher level to be respected. And it's talking about, we have to give our children the talk, especially if we have black boy children, we have to give them the talk. And that when you come across a police officer, it's almost again like master slave. It's like you have to shut up, keep your head down, keep your hands where they can see them, and don't say anything.
Yeah. Don't move too quickly. Yeah.
Don't move quickly. Don't say a word. Don't look them in the eye, sort of thing, which is, I think a lot of people are frustrated by that, and they're like, well, I have rights too. And it's that when you start saying I have rights and you start expressing that, like you said, with the angry black man, then you're resisting. You're being resistant.
Yeah. Yeah. Rather than having, the ability and the space to be able to express yourself. I've had friends, I'm like, y'all talk to cops like that? And it's just, they get stopped. Well, what are you stopping me for? And they're doing all this and that. I can tell you personally, again, I'm not the real smallest guy, but I'm like, I can't do that. Because this is going to be a whole different situation that we have to look at.
Jail. And that's a good scenario.
Oh yeah, your best case scenario, I'll get arrested and go to jail. Yeah, with all my teeth intact. Yeah, but it's like but as far as the differential treatment, that is absolutely real. And when I was growing up, and really throughout my career, it's just interesting when I would be talking to someone about a particular case, whether I was supervising or whether we're a group of professionals, whatever, talking about a particular case. If I would bring up the case of racism, and I think this is, this person's impacted this way because this person over here is behaving in a racist way, I typically got some kind of resistance or at least questioning by some of the white people there. It's like, well, are you sure that it's racism? Yeah, I'm sure it's racism. Well, why do you think that? And it would just kind of be picked to death. And if I wasn't told directly, it would certainly be insinuated that I see racism everywhere.
Yeah, you're just phantom. You're just making up all this stuff.
Yeah, I do see racism everywhere because my vision is good, but it's been like that. And as I was coming up, if I was interacting with someone and I saw interacting with a white person who saw racism too, it really had to be blatant.
It was blatant. It had to be blatant, yeah.
It had to be huge. So the thing that I see now, I mean, that having been the case historically, the thing that I see now with these protests for Mr. Floyd is when you look at the people protesting, there's some of everyone out there because people are seeing now this is just wrong. It doesn't matter who it happens to, but we are starting to see that it's happening more in a disproportionate level to Black people, that you're getting shot for nothing.
Yeah.
And the thing that I was telling somebody recently, it's like sort of the difference in how we talk and how we handle conflict and challenges. It's kind of like this. A lot of times if Black folks at a restaurant and the order comes back wrong, we want to talk to the server. I've been with some of my friends, they get their order wrong, they want to talk to the manager. It's a real different level of things, and there is to some degree a sense of, I was going to say entitlement, that is there to some degree, but it's a certain sense of expectation that I expect that things are going to be a particular way. And
does that go back? to, again, this conscious
Mhm.
collective consciousness of not being as good as, or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've had people say, slavery and all that stuff's in the past, and racism's in the past, and all this other stuff. But and you should be over it by now. You know what? I mean, whether you're talking about,
Over it.
racism and cultural values, or whether you're talking about relationships, whether you're talking about all this stuff, you know what helps a person be able to get over things from the past? If the past doesn't keep intruding in the present.
Yeah. Amen.
As long as it doesn't, thank you, as long as it doesn't keep coming up, we stand a better chance of being able to keep it
Overcoming.
where it goes. But if every time you go to the store, you're getting followed and everybody else,
Yeah, you're followed around the store, then it's
oh,
coming right into your face.
yeah, I was like, in where my family and I are living right now, we were the first people living in this building. It's a brand new complex. And I went to dump the garbage. So I go out to the dumpster, I'm dumping the garbage, like 8 o'clock at night. And I'm walking, and as I'm dumping the garbage, I see a police car and somebody, across the parking lot, and somebody talking to him. It's like, wonder what's going on. So I dump the garbage and I'm walking back. This cop follows me all the way to my
Back.
apartment and watch with a light and watch me go into my apartment. Following week, we have a town hall meeting for the apartment complex and everything. Excuse me, and two police officers were there. And I expressed to them exactly what happened, how offended I was, how ridiculous it was, all these different things. And I said, I was just going out dumping the garbage. Why did some cop have to follow me and stuff? He asked me, what were you wearing?
Oh my gosh.
What do you mean, what am I wearing? I said, what I said to him, it's like, I pay rent here like everybody else. I'm a doctor, I'm a professional. I was just dumping the garbage. He said, well, what were you wearing? I said, what do you mean, what was I wearing? He said, were you dressed like a doctor? I said, I'm a psychologist. Well, I was supposed to wear like a badge with a brain on it. What difference does it make that
Wow.
I'm not, in a lab coat and a step? What difference would that have made? And I asked him, I said, does anyone else here have to dress a particular way in order to get respect?
Wow.
And, not unsurprisingly, it was very quiet, but the fact that this guy said it, no one in the room looked surprised.
Like
No
it
one
was,
in the room,
yeah. Were you
like it was a thing.
you wearing a
Yeah.
hoodie?
Yeah, in a hoodie. Yeah, yeah. And it was just like it was nothing. Again, it didn't seem that whatever behaviors they thought I was capable of, that it didn't seem out of character. So
Right.
even when so anything that somebody assumes about me is exactly that, is speculation. What I say is the reality. So your speculation that I am capable of these criminal acts does trumps me saying, but I'm a doctor, I'm an educated person. They had no reaction to that. But to the cop saying, like I was being a suspect, nobody looked surprised.
Yeah.
So again, it's they when a person has a particular expectation about something, a lot of times it either colors, influences, or distorts whatever the reality is.
Yeah, and as we wrap, I have a few comments. Let me read that, and I have one last question for you. So, yes, my friend Sebastian says was crying and reminding her 11-year-old boy that what he cannot do as a Black boy. It was painful to watch that. Stacy says we need a part 2. We'll need to go ahead and talk about it more and more and more. Transformation will take time. Sebastian says we need to have you on Almost Naked Conversation show to discuss more of this. Yeah, maybe we can do part 2 on Almost Naked Conversation.
Sure.
As Stacy says, we're going to have to define racism versus racialism. We are going to have to ask the tough questions and answer the tough questions. We need to workshop and more discussions, and we really need to talk about white privilege. What white privilege conversation? It will make people really uncomfortable, but it is time. And that's kind of where my question was. Yeah, that cop was an idiot. He really was. Again, the unconscious racial bias allows him to say foolishness that sounds intelligent. It's stupid, but it sounded to him because of his, again, white privilege and because of racial bias, that unconscious racism. He said that. So my last question to you is, on the news, you're seeing a lot of the looting are with young teenage white boys that are going and starting the looting. They have them on video. So, but a lot of that's not being reported because what's being shown are the Black people going in after the white people have already done their stuff and then going in and taking more. So looting is wrong on every level.
Absolutely.
Looting and rioting and all that is wrong on every level. But again, the fact that these teenage boys are going in and causing this damage and destruction is not being reported. What is your opinion of that?
I think, again, it's when some groups do a particular criminal act, in your example of white boys, looting and all this other stuff, it's overlooked, it's dismissed. There's some other reason for it. So there's some other reason when they do it, but there's no excuse if Black people do it. I saw something today on MSNBC, and they were saying that these cops are pepper spraying people and shooting tear gas and rubber bullets and all this other stuff at even peaceful protesters, right? But the person who was doing this news piece was saying, but remember when people were protesting about the quarantine, you had these white folks up in cops' faces yelling and screaming, and you never heard of anybody getting shot or beat up or anything like that. Yeah, because I guess they're expressing, their thoughts and their feelings and their First Amendment rights or whatever. But this group over here, they're a bunch of vandals. And again, I agree with you. There is never going to be a good enough reason for people to be looting or anything like that, because you're hurting the cause. But as far as the
small business owners and communities that are trying that support you.
Exactly. And you don't need to hurt innocent people, because the whole purpose of the protest was because an innocent person got hurt. Right. So yeah, but I believe it's when you expect certain things out of people, what you see is going to fulfill that expectation, whether it's real or whether it isn't.
Yeah, well, we are definitely going to continue this conversation. I think Almost Naked Conversations this week would be a great place if you are available to jump on with passion and continue this conversation. But it has definitely, I'm so thankful that you came on tonight to have this discussion with us. And racism is history. It's not
at all.
Well, and now I think it's getting a punch in the face, but we have to keep punching it in the face.
Yeah, you got to keep punching it back. Sebastian just said racism. A lot of people think racism is history. A lot of people think racism is a photograph, when racism really is a live stream.
Yeah,
it's ongoing.
It's ongoing, and we just need to keep punching it in the face and not allow it to just go dormant and then come back, raise itself up again. We have to address it. Like Stacey said, we have to have the uncomfortable conversations about it, talk about it, because this whole thing about diversity and inclusion and affirmative action and all this kind of stuff, it has to come out, and let's talk, because it's all PC. Diversity and inclusion is PC. It's not real. It's not really, diversity is not really happening. It is kind of, pardon the term, but whitewashed. It's not really a thing. So we'll have you back on Dramaniac TV, and it's hard to shut this show down, but we got to.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Dr.
You're
Kieran
very welcome.
I still have other questions that I never got to, but it was a lively conversation, and I appreciate you sticking around for us today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So this has been the Audacious Confidence Show here on Dramaniac TV, and we were talking to Dr. Kieran Brown about being a Black man in America and what that was like growing up, and how it has impacted his life and his confidence growing up. And so we just kind of scratched the surface just slightly. We didn't really get deep into a lot of things because we only had 45 minutes, which we went over. We went over 45 minutes, but he will continue this. We will continue this conversation in the weeks to come, and I hope you can come back and join us for more for continuing this conversation. So here on Dramaniac TV, we also say we love for you to dream big, and we make it happen, and go live your life with audacious confidence. Good night. Hi, Alicia Couri here. If you enjoyed that episode of the Audacious Confidence Show, check out more on this channel. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends. And if you hit that notification button, you won't miss a single episode.